Hello, Suburban viewers. Chelsea St. Pierre, reporter with the Suburban newspaper. I'm here today with Gary White, Montreal based musician, solo artist. And Gary, thank you for meeting with us today. I understand that you put together a virtual pub night.
Help me along, making the strong walls together, beat boys and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Break at your phone to help me once again, the beat boys and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
I certainly can, and thank you for having me. And thank you for taking this opportunity to interview me about the virtual pubs. I'm a working musician who has mostly been playing, not exclusively, but mostly been playing in pubs and restaurants and bars to earn my living for several years now. And of course, when the pandemic hit and all the bars and everything was shut down and locked down in early March, that was it. And my entire means of earning income was, wiped away. There were things like the CERB and everything, but what happened is myself and a partner I work with, a fellow named Pete Dog, we have a little project called the White Dog Project. We're a duo and we play in the pubs regularly. We talked about doing, we said, let's do an online virtual pub. So we talked about how that could happen. People could come in and watch us play for an hour off of my Facebook page and leave virtual tips through a PayPal tip jar or even e-transfer. But we didn't want to just have it be all about us, and we figured it's a good opportunity to pay it forward, if you will. So we decided we would do a 50-50 split. 50% of the tip jar we would use as our musical revenue or income, but 50% of it we gave over to a charity, which happened to be a summer camp called Camp Kinkora that I've been involved with for many, many years. It went so much better than we could have imagined that we ended up raising. I should mention too, and this is really important, because we were doing a virtual, we said we're going to call this a virtual pub night. We actually reached out to one of the pubs where we play regularly, which is Kelly's Orchard Pub in Point Claire, and they sponsored the event. They were very generous with a sponsorship to sort of kickstart the tip jar, if you will. But it went better than we could have imagined. We ended up raising, I think, $1,600, $1,600, something like that.
And this money was raised for what purpose? Where is
well,
this
that
money
event,
going to?
that first specific event was for to raise money for Camp Kinkora to help send kids from financially disadvantaged families, from marginalized families, and even families, because there's families that can go to this camp as well. So the money that we raised was donated to the camp to help them offset the cost of making sure that they can, I say they, but it's we. I work for that camp as well, and I've been involved with that camp for all my life, to make sure that they could have, they can make sure that their camp is accessible to children from marginalized families, but also marginalized families to come up and spend time at camp. So it went better than I could have imagined, and we raised $1,582. And
So, sorry, with the personal loss of income, like with musicians, losing work by default, right? Because we're talking a lot about restaurant closures and bar closures, and how difficult the crisis is for them. However, there's other businesses that are tied into that, including entertainment businesses, musicians or comedians, things like that. So as a musician, losing your entire income, what drives you to spend your free time to raise money for charity?
Well, the answer to that is that for all of my adult life until about 4 or 5 years ago, I worked full-time in the charitable sector. I worked for the YMCA's of Quebec for 30 years. When I left the Y, I worked for a year at Welcome Hall Mission, which is one of the biggest food security organizations in Montreal. That they have a shelter for homeless men and women. They do family food security packages, and all kinds of great programs for people who can't, put food on the table for themselves, people living in distress. So that I've been working in that sector all my life and playing music on the side as a kind of, you know, part-time thing. But I made a choice at one point to switch those two things. And I said, I'm going to, you know, after I left the YMCA, I worked for a year at Welcome Hall Mission. After my year at Welcome Hall Mission, I decided I'm going to commit full-time to work as a musician. That'll be the thing that I do. That's my job. That's my career now. And if I could do other stuff in terms of the charitable sector or some community work, I'll do it on a part-time basis. And so that's why I, like, even after I made that switch, I've never stopped having an interest in finding ways to kind of combine music with doing some good. And it's not a hard thing to do. People love live music. They love to be entertained. They love to get in a room together and have fun and dance. And so it's an easy way to bring people together and raise money at the same time. So it's something I continued doing even after I left the charitable sector in terms of my career. And when I started doing these virtual pubs, it was kind of a no-brainer that some part of that be about giving back and paying forward and giving back to the community. The thing is, I did the first one with Pete, and the next day, literally the next day, the government fully shut everything down and said no more gatherings, no more anything. So I couldn't even get Pete into the studio to do a second one, which I would have, but I decided to keep doing them on my own.
You had to go solo at that point.
Yeah. So I did another one, and then I did another one, and I did another one, and the next thing you know, I'd done 10 of them, and we've done 10 since March, and we've raised, and I say we because it's a whole little community of people who come to these events. And
right. And how many people on average attend the virtual pub night?
I'm not sure how many are in the virtual room at any given time. I think it could be anywhere from like 30 or 40 to 100 people are in the room. But then you can also go back and look at them after they've happened. You can go on because they kind of live forever on Facebook.
Right.
Some of the virtual pubs have had like over 2,000 hits, where 2,000 people have gone and looked at least some part of the video from a previous virtual pub, you know. And
so people can continue donating. I'm sorry, people can continue donating even after the live as it stays on Facebook, because so just for people who are less familiar with Facebook, when you do a live after it's complete, it can remain on your page, correct? And then,
yeah, they're all out there still, but I mean, the nature of Facebook is that stuff kind of gets lost in the back of, you know, the back of Facebook or whatever. But typically what happens is people are donating or making tips through the virtual tip jar or through e-transfer during the event. And then typically for the next couple of days or a few days, even after that, I'll get a trickle of additional tips. And then usually by about the middle of the week after I've done one, I'll sort of make the donation to the charity, the given charity of that specific virtual pub. So we've done 10, and we've done different charitable organizations for most of them.
Okay, which charitable organizations has this pub benefited?
We 3 of them have in one way or other benefited Camp Kinkora, whether it's for children at Camp Kinkora at one point, and then at one point it was for families. There's a specific week at Kinkora where families, recently landed refugee families, spend the week at camp, and so one of the benefits was for that. But the other organizations are the NDG Food Depot, the Dawson Boys and Girls Club in Verdun. There's a seniors organization in LaSalle, small grassroots seniors club that does outreach and programs for seniors called LaSalle DNG Seniors Club. One of the events supported the West Mountain NDG YMCAs for their programs for youth at risk. We did one for, who am I missing? Oh boy. The West Island Association for Intellectually Handicapped Adults. And the most recent one was for the Westmount Rotary Club does Christmas basket deliveries for families in need in Verdun, Lachine, and LaSalle every Christmas. So the most recent one raised money for the Christmas basket program for the Westmount Rotary Club. Okay,
so Gary, how much money has been raised with the collective virtual pub nights that have occurred to date, that have been produced to date?
So for the various organizations that I just mentioned to you, different amounts from different pubs, but the total amount that we've donated to those grassroots organizations up until now is just over $14,000.
Why is it important to you, particularly to support grassroots organizations?
So there was two things going on with local charities. Which, you're asking about grassroots charities, and I am aware that there's two things going on with these grassroots local charities when the pandemic hit and everything was shut down. And one of them is that they saw their donations diminishing because people are being put out of work. People have less money to give to these charities. And at the same time, the need for people who rely on these charities is increasing. So if you look at something like the NDG Food Depot, they're delivering food, emergency food relief to people. They're running programs to help people to figure out how to use their money better to spend on food, and or maybe grow their own food, or whatever the case may be. Well, there's more and more demand on them for their services, and all of a sudden there's less and less money coming in. So that was one of the reasons that it was important for me to choose local kind of grassroots organizations as the beneficiaries from the money that was being raised.
Okay. And Gary, how can one attend the virtual pub night? Where do we go to view this live?
You got to find me. You got to find me on. You got to find me on Facebook. But everything that I do on Facebook is public. So if Gary White, musician on Facebook. But there's another way that you could do that, which would be if you go to my website. I have a website which is garywhite.ca. It's easy to remember.
Garywhite.ca.
garywhite.ca, and then there's a Facebook link on my website. So if you click on that Facebook link, you're going to be at my Facebook page. And when we do these, on the night that they're happening, you just go to my Facebook page at 7:00 on the night of the virtual pub, and there it is. It's happening. It's like watching television. Yeah.
So Gary, you have a CD that came out. So also during the time of COVID, you took the time to focus on another project that was important to you.
Yeah, and thank you for asking me about that. Apart from the virtual pubs, which have taken up a lot of time and energy because they need to be organized and find sponsors and et cetera, find the right charities. But apart from that, being stuck in my studio for large chunks of time and not being able to go out into the world and play music or whatever, I made a decision to do something that I'd always wanted to do, which is write and record some of my own music. So I do have, I actually released it yesterday, or pre-released it yesterday, a CD of my own original music, which can be, you can get the CD if you just, again, go to that website, garywhite.ca, and it's 10 songs, six original compositions, four covers. And what I did, what's an interesting thing about that is, if people are on Facebook or on social media, they're seeing all these different musical collaborations. You see these videos where it looks like the Hollywood Squares or the Brady Bunch with all these split screen stuff. Well, I'm stuck alone in my studio for 9 months, and I'm recording and writing, but I'm alone. But because of that same technology that allows for that kind of split screen collaboration of live music, I was able to get some of my friends, people I played with in bands 30 years ago, living in Australia, Vancouver, whatever, are all on this CD that I wrote and recorded through the miracle of this file sharing technology or whatever. So it's something I'm very proud of, and it's something that I've wanted to do in my life. And it's sad to say that it took a global health crisis for me to finally get motivated to do it, but I did it, and it's coming out.
So how many hours do you spend, how many hours would you say that you spend a week playing music or writing music or focusing on music for, whether it be for the CD that you worked on since March, or whether it be for the charities that you have been raising money for? I mean, and then I suppose practice.
Well, I have a part-time job that I love very much, and it's a very meaningful work that I'm doing as an operations manager for Camp Kinkora, which is one of the several charities we've raised money for through the virtual pubs. But I would say that, like, when I'm not doing my work for Camp Kinkora as the operations manager, I'm sleeping, or I go for a swim, or I go for a walk. I'm not seeing many people, but I'm playing music, or I'm working on music, or I'm trying to write, or I'm trying to record, or I'm trying to figure out how to get people to listen to my CD or get my CD or whatever. So it's really filled up the time in a wonderful way. This pandemic is an absolutely horrible thing, but if there's one good thing that came out of it for me, it's this whole thing of finally creating and recording some of my own music, and I'm very, very pleased and proud of that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Gary, for meeting with us today. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Chelsea.